Thanks, Sarah, for the intro. Yeah, thanks everyone for joining Launchit Founder Finance Academy. So take it away, Sarah.
Hi everyone, thanks for joining us today for our Launch It Founder Finance Academy Masterclass with Patrick again. So as you know, this program is all about helping you build your money confidence through workshops like this, mentoring and our digital resource hub. So we'll have a Q&A and a short poll at the end, and this session is being recorded. So today's session with Patrick is intermediate budgeting and cash flow. And Patrick's one of our trusted business mentors, and he's the founder of Negotiation Works. And I'll hand over to Patrick now.
Thank you, Sarah. I'm just going to put my screen, if you can just confirm when you can see that. Okay.
Yeah.
All right, good. So hi everyone, and welcome to the session on intermediate budgeting and cash flow. Hopefully, most of you joined the session 2 weeks ago where we did the basic budgeting and cash flow, and this flows on from that. If you didn't do that one, I'd suggest you go back and look at the transcript because it'll make today make a lot more sense. And we're not going to go into any detail on the developing a cash flow and budget, assuming that you've already done that. So what we want to do today is kind of moving beyond those basics and show you how you can use advanced budgeting and cash flow to support your business. So looking at things like scenario planning and modeling to make sure that your budget and your cash flow work for you and your business. I'm then going to show you some of the key financial metrics that you can use within your business that you would use to look at the health and act as early warning signals for your business as well. And then we'll wrap all that up at the end with a summary of what you've learned today, some of the things that you can take away with you and try at home on your own, and some of the things to watch out for as you step through this. Okay. As I would always say as well, please feel free to jump in with any questions, anything that you're unsure of. No question is a bad question. I'd rather you jumped in, really understood the topic before we move on to the next section. So now that you understand budgeting and cash flow, it's important to look at how you would use those more strategically. So how can budgeting and cash flow help you make better decisions about your business, about when and how to grow, where to make investments, and also how to predict how your business might perform over time. So moving from reactive to proactive. So how do you scenario model and plan for your business? How do you look at different outcomes across your business? How to use KPIs to look at the health of your business, and then to look at variance analysis. And variance analysis is just a fancy way of saying, what did I think was going to happen and what actually happened? And what are the underlying reasons behind that? And how do I use that then to plan better in the future? How do you start to spot patterns across your business? What are the 3 to 5 key metrics that you should use to plan your business? How do you look at different scenarios? And generally, we would break that into sort of 3, which would be what is the best case scenario? If everything went right within my business, what would it look like? And what does that mean for my business? What do I really expect to happen? And importantly as well, what's the worst case scenario? So if things were to go wrong within my business, my revenue wasn't necessarily where it needed to be. One of the things we're seeing at the moment with the fuel crisis in the Middle East, what if some of my costs were to go up? How does that impact my business, and what can I do about it? So really, we want to make sure that from this you take away good financial planning so that you can make better decisions. You can anticipate when things are going to go wrong. You understand key metrics across your business. and you're able to prepare for the future. So let's get into it. So scenario planning is all about understanding, what could happen across your business, and any business. A budget is really, as we said in the last session, a forecast of what you think is going to happen within your business. And many things can happen. Your sales could be higher than you could expected. Your costs could be greater than you expected. And it's important to understand how you respond and act to that. So when you've done your first budget, and you've planned that over a 12-month period, and then you expect to extrapolate that over longer periods of time. You need to make some assumptions about your business. So what do you expect your sales to do over that period? How do you expect them to grow? Which, again, sort of, gets you into the realm of looking at a business plan, understanding that business plan, understanding what might happen over time. Are you putting the systems in place to underpin that growth? Do you understand how your costs will fluctuate? Do you have the right equipment in place? Do you need to make strategic purchases at different times? What does that do to your cash flow? What does that do to your budgeting? So all of these things interlink again. And once you understand how you expect your business to evolve over a 1 year or a 3 or a 5 year period, then you can start to build that plan on the foundations of the budgeting that we went through in the last session. And then it's really just a case of modeling out those scenarios. And when you're modeling out those scenarios, you need to be really specific about what's going to happen in the business. So, in a best case scenario, you're optimistic about the growth prospects within your business. So this might be growing at double digit year on year. So maybe it's 10%, 15%, 20%, whatever is realistic and whatever you think is achievable within your business. It also might include either a kind of a linear scenario on your expenses, so your expenses grow in line with your sales. But it also might mean for your business that you get some economies out of that. So, every incremental sale doesn't necessarily cost the same because you're more efficient. The more you grow, the more efficient you are in your cost base. It also might mean that you have greater purchasing power with your suppliers, which might mean you're able to negotiate better terms with them, either better terms in terms of your payment cycles or better terms in terms of the actual unit costs for the services or the raw materials that you're buying. So that would be your best case scenario. You're growing well, sales are performing well, and your expenses are under control. Your base case or your realistic case might be just an extrapolation of the current forecast that you have. So, not really looking at exponential growth, but just, carrying on a linear trend, year on year growth based on what you've seen in the past. And then the worst case scenario is, what if my sales don't achieve the expectations that I had? There might be an impact in the market. Your cost may increase. You may be receiving payment delays from some of your customers. So what does that look like? And really, again, be pessimistic. Be optimistic when you look at the best case, but pessimistic when you look at the worst case. And the important things to understand here is, what does that mean for your business? If my worst case is realized, do I still have a sustainable business? Do I need to make adjustments within my business? Do I need to cut back in certain things? Do I need to look at some of my suppliers and see whether or not I can vary my supply chain where I might be able to buy something slightly less expensive than it is today? Do I need to look at some of the payment terms that I have with some of my suppliers? Do I really need to invest in driving my sales growth because that's the engine that drives my business? And I would say from this as well, um, it's important that you understand what could go wrong and what could happen in your business, not because that's what might happen, but because that you can plan for that. You can scenario model and then you can understand what action you need to take if those events might happen in the future. And also to anticipate those events and to, um, you know, cut them off before they are realized. Um, you know, Going into a business without a plan means that you're constantly surprised and reacting to what happens rather than anticipating and planning ahead. And really, these tools are just to give you the tools to be able to understand what might happen and then plan ahead. As I said as well, once you've done a model and you understand what the outlook looks like for the future, once the actuals then start to land, then you would look at what we call variance analysis, which is what did I think was going to happen and what actually happened, and what are the differences? And do I really understand what's going on with my business? And do I understand why there was a variance? Is there something I can do about that variance? Are we seeing significant variances? Is it a small variance? And if there are consistent variances to your plan, then you can make adjustments again to your forecast for the future because you're getting better information about what's actually going to happen and what is happening within your business. Okay. I'll stop there as I usually do, just to see if there's any questions from anybody in the audience. If anybody has any questions, then please ask now. Okay. If there's no questions, we'll move on to the next section. Just to wrap this up, this really builds on the budgeting basics that we did 2 weeks ago, understanding how to build your budget, and then this really looks at how you would then expand that out over a longer period of time. You would do multiple scenarios based on best case, realistic case, and worst case, anticipating those, and then looking at that on a monthly basis to see where there was variances to your actuals. Okay. So moving on to mastering cash flow, as we spoke about last time, cash flow is really about when money actually hits your account and when money actually leaves your account. As we spoke about the last time, understanding cash flow is quite different to budgeting. Budgeting is forecasting what you think is going to happen, and cash flow is what's actually happening within your business. But you can start to manage that proactively as well. And managing cash flow is a very important part of running a business. As I've said before, you can be profitable from a budgeting perspective in terms of the cash or the income you expect to receive and the expenses that you have within your business. But more businesses fail because of failing to manage cash flow than anything else, which is the timing of when money actually hits your account. So it's important that you manage your receivables. Your receivables is the income. So as soon as you've completed any work, make sure that you're invoicing promptly. Either same day or on completion of the work. And it's psychological as well because if you don't invoice your customer promptly, they will immediately think that it's not important. And if you're taking a couple of days to invoice them, they may take a couple of days to pay you, and then that starts to back up and really impact your cash flow. Be very clear on the terms that you expect from your customers. So is it cash on delivery? Is it 7 days? Is it 14 days from invoice? 30 days from invoice? I would imagine a lot of you are operating on a cash on delivery model, but they may be customers that you have that have payment terms, either formal or implied. And if you have implied cash flow terms, they might receive an invoice from you, and then they've generally sort of fallen into this 7-day payment term or whenever it might be convenient for them. Always stay on top of those things, and remind your customers of the payment terms that you expect from them. Otherwise, it can get away from you. Be very hot on overpayment to make sure that it's systematic. If you're using some software, and make sure that it's flagging you and your customers, and when payments are overdue. You may also decide that you want to charge late payment penalties for customers that pay late, and that would incentivize them to pay sooner. Also, when you're working on larger projects, where you've got significant raw material outlay at the beginning, but that project might take 3 months, it might take 6 months. You might consider payment milestones as well as part of the proposal that you make for your customer. So you might decide, once I've completed the initial scoping of the activity at the end of month one, then there's a milestone payment. And that might be 10% or 25% of the final payment. But it kind of makes sure that you've got cash flowing through your business, and not waiting to the very end before you get payment. Now, the same way that you manage your income, you also can manage your outgoings. So you might agree with your supply chain that you pay them later. The ideal scenario is that you're getting cash on delivery from your customer, but you're getting 14 or 30-day payment terms with your supply chain. And that creates a positive cash flow through your business. So income is coming in earlier than the outgoings that you have to pay out. So always be looking at that and see how you can negotiate better terms with your customers. Paying strategically, managing your cash flow means that you're generating that positive cash flow, and you're not getting a cash flow squeeze within your business. And don't pay earlier than you should unless you're getting a meaningful discount from your supply chain. So what does all that mean? Make sure that you're sending your invoices timelessly, within 24 hours of completing the work at a very minimum. As you might get discounts from your supply chain, you might also offer discounts to your customers for immediate payment or timely payment of their invoices. Making sure that you set up reminders, and you don't allow overdue invoices to drift. Because again, psychologically, that encourages your customers not to pay you on time. Create a positive cash flow by getting cash on delivery, and negotiating good payment terms up to 30 days with your supply chain. And if you can, there's a lot of really good software and accounting packages out there today that allow you to track and manage. Even with some of the business bank accounts as well. They allow you to integrate that with the software, so you can track invoices, you can track payment, and make sure it's all tied together. Maybe consider upfront payments or milestone payments for some of the bigger projects. So it makes sense, but faster invoicing equals faster payment. Always look at your supply chain, because those payment terms are always negotiable. Make sure that you're tracking late payers and following up with them. Don't be afraid to ask for payment. The best thing is always to ask for payment on delivery. But where you have payment terms, make sure that you're following up timeously with your customers. And all the driver behind this is to make sure that you have a positive cash flow within your business. So you're receiving money on time and you're managing the outpayments that you're making to your supply chain.
Patrick, there is a question.
Okay, sorry, I can't see it on my screen.
Yeah, no problem. So it is, do you have any recommendations for affordable accounting software for new small businesses or business accounts to look into?
Not off the top of my head, but I can look at some and send it on to you, and you can then distribute that out to the teams.
Okay.
Some of the packages I'm sort of more familiar with are, more sort of aimed at sort of medium and large scale businesses. But I can do some research and I'd be happy to share that with everyone. Okay. Any other questions from anyone? No? Okay. All right. Um, so key financial metrics that every business should know and should track. So it might look like a lot on the screen, but we'll step through it relatively slowly. And if there's any questions, please jump in. We have touched on some of these when we've done the budgeting basics, but I'll explain them again and why they're important for your business. So the first one is gross profit. And gross profit is really just taking your income minus the cost of creating that product or service. It's important for you in your business because it looks at the percentage of revenue that you're keeping after actually creating that product. And what you're really looking for when you look at this is changing over time. So, is gross profit increasing? And what that actually means is really just that I need to look at some, things within my business. So, if gross profit is decreasing over time, it could only mean two things. Either you're discounting your services and you're generating less income, or the cost of raw materials or creating that product is increasing. And if you're seeing that your gross profit is declining over time, it might mean that you want to look at some alternatives to the supply chain that you have. Maybe you need to go and renegotiate the terms of that service, or look at alternatives. And if you have a long-standing relationship with someone in terms of providing some of the raw materials into your business, it's not unreasonable to go and look at someone else and just test out whether or not somebody is giving a consistent long-term good service or if there are other alternatives out there. And also, as your business scales and grows, as I said previously, it gives you a little bit more buying power, and that gives you the opportunity to go and renegotiate. Operating profit is the next line on your budget. And that's really minusing then the cost of running your business. So operating profit is your income less your cost of goods sold, which is then creating the product or service, and then taking off the running of your business. So that could be rent, it could be salaries, it could be marketing expenses, whatever it might be. And that shows you then the revenue that you keep after running your business. And why that's important is then you're looking again, it changes over time. So if operating profit is increasing or decreasing, are you seeing increases in other expenses in running your business? And again, it's just giving you a metric that you can measure that shows you changes over time. And really, what you want is for your gross profit and your operating profit to be increasing over time because that means that you're getting more efficient as you're running your business. So that the percentage is increasing, and the absolute value is increasing. So you're generating more profit for you and your business. Net profit is then what you retain within the business. So unfortunately, we all have to pay taxes on the profits that we generate within a business. And again, you're looking for that profit being consistent or growing. If it's declining over time, then you need to be looking into your business. You need to understand what's happening there. Are there other expenses that are increasing or decreasing, and what action do you need to take? Operating cash flow is, as it says, the actual money you received into your business less the money that you've paid out. You always want your business to be generating a positive operating free cash flow. That means that you're generating more cash flow, more money than you're paying out. Now, cash flow is a funny thing, as we've talked about, because you could be profitable at a budget perspective, but you need to be managing when money lands and when money leaves your business. So operating cash flow is all about timing. We talked a little bit in the last session about how you might manage a negative cash flow within your business. So you might look at reducing payment terms when you have them. You might look at bringing cash into your business quicker, asking your customers to pay you sooner, or you might look at pushing some of the payments that you have coming up out a little bit further with your suppliers so that you're not in a cash squeeze. If you do find yourself in a cash squeeze, there's different ways that you can raise cash on a temporary basis. That might be an overdraft with your bank. It might be a short-term loan. It might be some other funding solution through one of the many funding solutions that are available to small businesses, just to help you through that period of cash flow squeeze. So if your business is positive at a budget perspective, but you've got a cash flow squeeze, then you might look at some of those alternatives. But obviously, they come with a cost. So when you're lending money, you generally have to pay interest on that money. So that's an additional cost, which you have to factor into your budgeting process when you're looking at the different options available to you. And you might look at different options and decide which one is the most or the least cost for you and your business. The last thing we're going to talk about is a KPI for running your business, is just revenue growth. So how is your business growing over time? Is your revenue growing at a consistent level? Do you understand why your business is growing? You always want your revenue to be growing faster than your costs, and growth is always good for a business. If you see that your revenue is stagnating, it's just again an indicator for you and understanding why. So have you lost a customer? Are you not focusing on your marketing efforts as much as you were in the past? And that's starting to trickle through into your revenue. So again, it's just, understanding what's going on in my business, looking at it as a key metric for my business, and then looking into it and understanding why it's happening and what actions do I need to take. There's loads of other metrics that you can look across a business, but I think these are the 5 most important. And I would always suggest that you start with a couple, you track them, you understand them, you get familiar with them, you get familiar with the calculations, and then you see how they vary over time. And then it's really important that you take action against those metrics if you start to see changes. It's always better to anticipate problems, understand with them. I understand what's happening within them, and take action. Okay. All right. Again, jump in with any questions if there are any. I don't know, Laura, if there's any come through while we've been talking.
No.
Yeah.
Okay, all good. All right. So that pretty much brings us to the summary. So hopefully what you've learned from the session today is that planning prepares you for multiple possible scenarios. It's very unlikely within your business that there's going to be one scenario, and it might change over time through different factors that are outside of your control. But the very important thing is that you anticipate, and you understand what actions you might take when things happen within your business, when things go wrong, or when things go right. Variance analysis turns budgeting into a learning tool. So, your budget is a forecast of what you think is going to happen. Variance analysis is looking at what actually happened, and then building that into your business for the future. So I thought this was going to happen. This is what actually has happened, and I understand why that has happened. And then I refine my budget over time so that I have a better budget based on what I now understand about my business. You can actively manage receivables and payments. So don't just accept the payment terms that come from your supply chain. Actively manage it. Particularly when you start to get a bit of scale, negotiate with your supply chain and see if you can get better terms. If you can get cash on delivery and 30-day terms with your customers, with your supply chain, you're immediately generating a positive cash flow, which is very good for your business. And then we've gone through the KPIs in the last slide. Get a couple together. 3 to 5 is optimal for your business at a headline level. Start to understand those, track them through your business, monitor them, and then take action. Develop an action plan on the back of what you see happening within those indicators. These are all lagging indicators as well. So a lagging indicator is essentially telling you what's happened after the fact. So, if you're looking at gross profit within your business, that's telling you what's happened after you've sold your services. There are a few leading indicators as well that, might be looking at your pipeline of new customers and what's coming through, which essentially tells you what's going to happen in the future in your business. And you may decide to research some of those on your own as well. So I'd really like you to take some practical actions away from this session, and go and look at your budget that you hopefully created after the last session that we did, and look at different scenarios. So what do you think is going to be the best case outlook for your business over the next 12 months or even longer? What do you think is going to be the worst case scenario? What could go wrong within your business? And do you still have a sustainable business if things go wrong? And what actions can you take? Calculate some of the scenarios, the KPIs within your business. Look at your receivables. Look at anything that's older than 30 days, and follow up with your customers, making sure that you're chasing down payment. Look at what payment terms you have with your suppliers, and see if there's anything you could renegotiate with them. Could you get better terms? Maybe even look at alternative suppliers, both in terms of better payment terms or reduced costs. And then set up a simple dashboard and track that on a monthly basis. I would always say as well, set a couple of set a sort of maybe half an hour aside once a week to focus on your business. Look at your budget, look how it's performed, look at your cash flow, look at what's happening in the next week. Build your model in something like Excel, and then just track it regularly and frequently, rather than leaving it to the end of the month or the end of a quarter, by which time something might have happened within the business that you've missed, and then you need to react to that. So in closing from me, look at different scenarios within your business, review variance on a regular basis. If you take anything away from this, it should be that you should invoice immediately. As soon as you've completed the work, make sure you're issuing that invoice because that sets the tone with your customer and make sure that they will pay you promptly. Terms are always negotiable. Monitor 3 to 5 metrics within your business. Make sure you manage your cash flow because that is the lifeblood of your business. And most businesses fail because of cash flow than anything else. And hopefully this helps you set better pricing within your business because you're able to understand profit and margin within the business. Hopefully it's going to help you make better decisions and anticipate when things go wrong. And build this into your weekly routine. It'll become a lot easier to manage when you do this on a regular basis and you become familiar with the different metrics and how your business ebbs and flows over time. And that's all from me. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Patrick. As always, really great session. So we now open the floor for any questions. Just feel free to ask or type it in the chat. Yeah. While you're having a think with your questions, just to remind you that the next session will not be a masterclass, but more, we're having a money clinic. And I can see some of you have signed up to that. So we have a few, I think 3 or 2 more slots left, but you need to complete a form prior. So if you can and you want to have a free one-to-one consultation, register today. See, there's a message in the chat. Where can I find the notes from the last session? So all the resources, including the recording the session and templates, you can all see it on the page. So where you registered. So it's launchit.org.uk/founderfinance. Yeah, I'll drop the link as well here. Yeah, do we have any questions? If not, I will just quickly launch a poll about this session today. And if you please can answer, it's just a 4-question poll. So hopefully you can help us with it because it will help us plan the next sessions as well. And just to say, while you're answering the poll, we're multitasking. To say we're so grateful to Patrick for doing the last, I think, 4 sessions, helping us with these master classes, and we hope to see him again in the next ones. Part of the poll is asking which topics you might be interested in, so just feel free to share or even DM us if you have other topics covered in there. And just let us know. But thank you so much, Patrick, for doing all of these sessions and providing the resources as well.
No problem, Ed. My pleasure. I also, as you said, I'm also on the mentor network as well. So if anybody's interested in sort of following up on sort of more in-depth or one-to-one sessions in terms of business coaching, I'm very happy to support that as well.
Yeah, and to add to what Patrick said, you are all also entitled to free micro mentoring sessions with Patrick or other mentors. I'll put it in the chat as well where you can book the sessions. Hope you can answer the poll. Not to put pressure on you, but I see 1 of 15 has answered. So you have any more questions about the session or any question you have about the program as well, just let us know. I saw a message from I think Monroe's Daily Bread is it Liana? Yeah. Just register. Is it register for the one-to-one session for the money clinic? Yeah. I put it in the chat as well so you can easily access it. Yeah. Okay. We'll just wait for maybe a minute for the rest of the poll answers to come in, and if there's no questions, we can end the session on there. And again, thank you so much for joining today's session, and to Patrick for holding the past 4 sessions with us. And we hope to see you again at the next one. Again, it's a money clinic, one-to-one, 30-minute private consultation with Elixir consultants. So they're a global consulting firm that usually advise big brands and companies and businesses. So we hope we will take advantage of that opportunity. And on the next Masterclass, 20th of May, we'll let you know. Keep checking our page what the topic will be, but we'll go on from that session to June and July as well, and possibly early August. So yeah, thank you so much, everyone, and see you again next time.
Thanks, Ed. Thanks, team. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Patrick.
Thanks.